Well, good morning, everybody. Like Ed said, for those of you who are new, my name is Jason. I'm on staff at the church here. I'm also a licensed therapist, and we've been learning in this series about the nature of our God, really. Our God is a covenant-making, covenant-keeping God. It's who He is. But we've taken a little time in that overarching theme that we're looking at, and we're looking specifically at the covenant of marriage. And the reason is that marriage is just the primary covenant relationship between us as human beings. And marriage is meant to mirror the covenant-keeping character of our God. And so what better way to get to know God is to get to know this covenant relationship between people in the way that we should. See, a covenant between God and people, or between a husband and wife, is simple. It's when both sides of that covenant commitment decide we're going to live life with this purpose in mind. You look at the person that you're in covenant with and you say, I will be for you and I will be for us, this relationship. And I'm going to do that until I can't do it anymore, until my life ends. That's what it's meant to look like. And if you weren't here with us last week, we started and we talked a little bit about the foundation of that marriage covenant. When men and women come together and they are both, as we said last week, made equally in the image of God. And they decide to work together in a life committed to and marked by a love that is self-giving and self-sacrificial for the other. So in a Christian marriage, that love, that kind of love and that kind of devotion isn't just pointed toward God, it's pointed toward one another. And remember, we looked at that central image of that triangle. You know, a husband and a wife down at the bottom, pointing their lives toward God, growing closer and closer to Him. And as they do, their lives begin to be drawn together as well. And when you look at the beauty of marriage and the beauty of the marriage covenant, it sounds great, doesn't it? It's like when you go to a wedding. You know, every time you sit through a wedding and the officiant stands up and they talk to the couple and they talk to the audience about marriage, they give this beautiful picture of what marriage is meant to be and how it's going to look for these two beautiful people in front of us today. And here we are in this beautiful venue, and we've paid thousands of dollars to get beautiful pictures of this beautiful moment. And it's so beautiful until it isn't. And then when it isn't beautiful and you're winding up as a couple making an appointment to see someone like me, and you sit in an office with a counselor and you look at each other and you think, it was beautiful. Why is it not beautiful anymore? In fact, why can't I just get along with you? And why can't you just get along with me? How did we go from being so happy and hopeful to unhappy and hopeless? And the thing about it is, what I find is most couples who wind up in a place like that, or even just get to a place where things they just weren't what they were on day one, is most couples will say, well, just tell me what to do. Just give me the formula, right? Just give me the words to say, give me the actions to take. Tell me how many more date nights we're going to have to go on. Tell me how many more tropical vacations to get this problem fixed, and I'll do it. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And the sad thing is there is no shortage of books and podcasts and seminars and intensive marriage retreats that you can go on that will give you those kinds of ideas of what you might even call marriage hacks. You know, go home and plug this in and do it. Especially in the Christian world, man, do we love us some marriage advice? Go to Amazon sometime. Just try it. Go to Amazon sometime and search marriage books. What you'll probably find is that the vast majority of marriage books out there today are written for Christians by Christians. Because we love us some marriage advice. Because I think what most of us have assumed as Christians is, oh, we know this. We got this one figured out. We kind of cornered the market on the marriage advice industry. But what you're going to find is that most of those resources, most of those things just feed into this desire to have this quick marriage hack that I can take home with me, plug it in, and it just works, right? And miracles will happen within my marriage, and it just happens. Most Christian marriage advice, as we said last week, likes to divide men and women into categories. We make it really simple. We try to oversimplify it. We say, okay, so all men are like this, and we put them in a box. And women, you will never understand them. And then we come over and we do the same thing with women, and we go, women, you are just like this, and we put y'all in a box. And men, you'll never have a clue. And most of us assume that that's the case. You just don't understand each other. You'll never understand what goes on in the mind and the heart of your partner. So if you want him to be like you want him to be, and if you want her to be like you want her to be, well, do what I say, or do this, or say that, or go here and say that and do that, and poof, it'll happen. And if you've read very many Christian marriage books, you probably know what I'm talking about. Like, for example, I've read this many times. Husbands, just come home every day, wash the dishes, do the housework, take out the trash, and if you do, she will drag you into the bedroom every night. Wives, just drag him into the bedroom every night, and he will cuddle you. He'll be emotionally available and vulnerable to you. He'll be the teddy bear you've always wanted. First of all, none of that is based on research. None of that's based in reality. It's not about what men and women as individuals are actually like. Second, as we said last week, it does not treat men and women as who they really are. Human beings made in the image of God. What that formula does is it turns basically men and women in marriages into mechanical objects. Give him what he wants, give her what she wants, and you'll get what you want. See what that is? That's a transactional relationship. That's a contract. And you can go do that at your local car dealership. But you try to bring that into your marriage, you have distorted the nature of the covenant, because it is a covenant. And covenants don't work like that. So, we don't ask questions like, what does it look like? See, what does it look like to be in a covenant with someone? What does a covenant relationship with my spouse really mean? How do covenant partners think about one another? How do they feel towards one another? How should they respond to one another? And how should they meet the needs of the other? We don't ask those questions because those questions are boring. We want a hack. We want a thing. We want something that just works. But questions like I just asked and proposed to you, those are difficult because they take work. They're not hacks that I try tomorrow night and it works on every person every time. And can you see how that attitude just even betrays the whole purpose of marriage? It's more about viewing my relationship not like a problem to solve or a puzzle to try and work out. It's instead looking at my partner as a fellow human being made in the image of God that I'm meant to love and to cherish. It's more about getting out of a marriage what I want or what I need instead of operating in a covenant partnership. So the thing I want to propose is, what if we just stopped asking questions like, well, what can I get my spouse to do or be? And what if we started asking, how do we as a couple create the best team ever? How do we create true partnership? And see, again, those questions aren't fun. They aren't sexy. Because the answers don't come simply, and they're not always obvious. The answer to those questions requires thought. It requires discernment. It requires sitting with that for a minute. It's not a formula. It's not a hack. It's really a discussion between two people. And one of those simple, pat answers that I see over and over and over again, and you find it in a whole lot of marriage advice books, it sounds really good, but often we don't realize how it ends up missing the mark. What I'm talking about specifically is this idea that we should always just compromise. See, compromise is supposedly the answer to all marriage problems, but sometimes compromise actually undermines the relationship.
Researchers Sheila and Keith Gregoire just released findings from one of the largest comprehensive studies on married couples in a book called The Marriage You Want. In that book, they tell a story showing how compromise doesn't always work in a covenant partnership. They write, Chad and Gabby have been married for just over 9 years and have welcomed 3 children, but their marriage has been struggling for a while. Chad recently confessed to Gabby that earlier this year, he quit a porn addiction that had had a hold on him since his early teens, but that he had kept secret from her. Chad knows what he did was wrong, but he hopes she will forgive him and even be proud that he has, in his words, overcome. Instead, Gabby feels betrayed, and their sex life, which was already on life support, has disintegrated to almost nothing. Chad is desperate for Gabby to forgive him and show up in the bedroom again. So he arranges for them to go see the pastor, who hopes he can convince Gabby to put the past behind them. As they pour out the story to the pastor, Gabby hopes for a sympathy. Instead, the pastor seems to wholeheartedly agree with Chad's perspective. Doesn't Gabby realize that her body belonged to her husband? The pastor demands to know how she expects Chad to continue to have victory over porn if she deprives him in the bedroom. Gabby, in tears, explains that even if she could summon the desire, she is so incredibly busy with their 3 kids and her job as a nurse that she is simply exhausted. And most days, sex is the last thing on her mind. The pastor suggests they compromise. Gabby should make herself more available sexually to Chad, and Chad should help out with the 3 children so that they both can get their needs met in the marriage. This pastor pulled out the find a compromise pat answer. Gabby gives Chad more sex, which Chad wants, while Chad gives Gabby more help with the kids and the housework, which Gabby wants. That may look like balance to many people, but compromise only works if you're already on an equal playing field. Gabby and Chad, however, are not. Here's what we see in that story. There's a problem in the marriage relationship. So, to fix the problem, the advice is a formula and a compromise. She gives him what he wants, he gives her what she wants, and it's done. Problem solved. But here's what's wrong with that approach. The need of each spouse are not equal, which means you can't treat them equally. You can't separate everything into his needs and her needs and come out with a solution that builds an equal covenant partnership. Think of it this way. You've probably seen the illustration where you take a big jar and fill it with sand, and then some small rocks, and then some big rocks. If you put the sand in first, the smaller rocks might fit, but there's no room left for the big rocks. But if you put the big rocks in first, then the smaller rocks, and finally pour the sand over the top of it, everything fits in perfectly. It's usually a way to illustrate how priorities matter. Focus on the big things, the most important things, first, and then you'll have plenty of space for all of the little things too. Here's how this applies to marriage. It takes discernment for a couple to figure out which issues are big rocks and which ones are small rocks or even sand. In other words, some things are foundational to the marriage covenant in order for it to be a stable, healthy place where everybody can survive. And some things are frills, good things that you want to enjoy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if one spouse is carrying one or more of the big rocks all by themselves, while the other spouse is upset about the small rocks or the sand they aren't getting, then we have an imbalance in the relationship. And in the end, if that imbalance exists, you can't have a marriage relationship marked by self-giving, self-sacrificial love. If you had a basic psychology class in high school, you've probably heard of the concept of the hierarchy of needs. This was developed in the mid-20th century by a psychologist named Abraham Maslow. It looks at humans' needs like a pyramid. You start at the bottom with the basic needs like air, water, food, shelter. The next level are things like personal safety, health, and so on. Then you move up to things like love and intimacy and relationship. And finally, towards the top, you have self-esteem, recognition, finding your purpose in life. And the premise is simple. You can't meet the higher needs until the lower ones are met. In other words, no one is worried about sex if you're being chased by a bear. And every relationship has a hierarchy of needs. And for you, for us, for life kind of marriages are built on the love of Christ, which puts the interests of others above myself. We don't focus solely on my needs or their needs, but what does our marriage need? What do we need to be for you, for us, for life?
So in that book that Sierra just mentioned, The Marriage You Want, the authors suggest that just as there is a hierarchy of needs for people, like we just learned, there's a hierarchy of needs within marriage itself. The same idea exists within the marriage relationship. Unless and until you meet those lower needs, you'll never fully or equally be able to achieve the ones that are higher up on the pyramid. And in marriage, what they propose, and I think they're onto something, is that there are basically 3 levels of needs in marriage. And I'm going to walk you through these, but as we do, here's what I want to encourage all of you to do, especially if you're married. I want you to consider these questions as you listen. Where am I personally spending most of my time and most of my energy these days? At what level of the needs triangle? And where does my spouse tend to spend most of their time and most of their energy these days? And because the goal is, as we talked about last week, that we move up the triangle together, that we don't just one leave the other, that we go together and it's a mutual thing, not one of us existing down here and the other one up here. If you remember that image last week, you'll see how this all kind of fits together, and it should make sense. But here's the basic premise behind this. At the bottom, it's all about survival in a relationship. In terms of marriage, this is the level where you're paying the bills. You're putting the food on the table. You're taking care of your body. If you have kids, you've taken care of their needs and what they demand. This is basic household chores. That's all down on the surviving level. Having a decent, orderly, well-functioning kind of place to call home and just exist. Now, don't hear me say that your house has to look perfect. Doesn't have to be spick and span and clean and perfect all the time. It just has to be at a reasonable, kind of relatively livable, stress-free kind of level. But surviving, it's also, and you have to remember this, it's also about having an absence of pain within the relationship. See, if one spouse is experiencing neglect or pain within their life, within the relationship, there's no way that they can move up to the next level of needs. And so that has to be addressed. It's all on that survival level, and that's where we start. And once we address all of those things on level 1, then we can start moving up together to level 2. And the second level, it goes from just surviving to now we're living. Now things are starting to change. And see, most couples that I work with, they think they're on level 2 or maybe even level 3. And they're arguing about stuff that tends to be on level 2 or 3. But the reason they argue is because somebody is still struggling down on level 1. They haven't addressed all of the issues down on the bottom. They want to move up, and they should want to move up, but they can't. And that's why they get frustrated. A quick thought on this, and I find that this is pretty true with most couples. Have you ever gotten to a point in your relationship, in your marriage, where you look at each other and one or both of you says, I just feel like we're roommates. I just feel like we're kind of just existing in the house, you know? Like, have you ever felt like you weren't married anymore, like you were just two people living in the same house, just making a house run? It gets frustrating, right? But that's because you're just trying to survive. You're just living on level 1. You're down there all the time. But the good news is that once you've gotten all of that stuff addressed and you figure out how to do it equally, you share it, you do it together, then the ground is set for you to move up into level 2 and stop being roommates. And on second level, you can get to do things like building a strong relationship, finding a comfort level with your spouse, being comfortable and easy around one another, feeling loved by one another and valued by the other. This is where you can actually start to, once the relationship is here, you can actually start having relationships outside the marriage. You find friends that you like and can connect with. You can go out and get you a hobby that brings you some joy. You're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sex is on level 2. And you don't have to like that. You don't have to agree with me. That still doesn't make you right. But the truth is that you can survive without sex. People do it all the time. And I know some of you just checked out, and that's okay. You'll come back. Once you get to level 2, then together you can arrive at level 3. And level 3 is where you and your spouse start really thriving. This is what we call the thriving level of marriage. This is where you start pursuing your passions in life, your calling in life together. When you start to be truly known, truly accepted for who you are within the marriage relationship, you get freed up to start being truly open and vulnerable with each other. This is where you go from just having sex to enjoying sex equally together on a deep, emotional, spiritual plane. Some of you don't know what that's like. It's there. But here's what I see happening in a lot of marriages who find themselves in trouble or they get out of balance. And the thing is, most of them don't even realize what's going on. They don't even see it. You have one spouse and they start enjoying, well, call them these perks or these frills of a higher level of existence. And the other one is still stuck down on a lower level. And the truth you have to wrestle with is this. Your marriage exists on the lowest level that either of you occupies. See, if one of you is down there barely surviving, just trying to get through the day, focusing on basic needs, and they have no time for themselves, but the other spouse is up here and they got a hobby and a passion and they're just killing it, your marriage will not thrive. It cannot thrive. It never will, because your marriage, your relationship is just surviving. That's why you're so frustrated. Maybe that's why both of you are frustrated. I want you to think back to that story that Sierra told us in the video. Chad is asking for more sex in exchange for him helping Gabby out with the kids. But what he fails to realize is that sex is on level 2, true sexual fulfillment's on level 3, caring for your children is on level 1. So when Chad asks his wife to come on, move up to level 2 before he comes down and helps her figure out together how they get balance on taking care of their kids and running their household, he's actually heaping more pressure on her. He is asking her to carry a load that she cannot carry until the basic needs are met. But here's the good news. If they'll do this, if they'll work together, if they'll address those foundational issues together, most of the time, what you find is the frills or the level 2 stuff, they start flowing out of your relationship naturally. So just imagine for a second, instead of coming at it from this compromise perspective and asking for more sex, which is a transaction, by the way, what if Chad realized that Gabby's down here in survival mode? And he recognizes she's worn out with the kids' activities. She's working all day. She's barely sleeping. And she just had to deal with the trauma of him revealing that he has a porn addiction. And now she's wondering every single day, is he going to go back to that? And if I don't do something about that, am I responsible for keeping him straight? And see, the fact is, just pause for a second. Do you know the fact is that studies show that whenever you present sex in a relationship as an obligation or a transaction, especially for women, sexual interest satisfaction goes down for both spouses. When you present sex as an obligation or a contractual back and forth, sexual desire and satisfaction immediately hits the floor. But what if? What if Chad decided, I'm going to go down into the trenches with her. I'm going to support her. I'm going to lift both of us up together. What if he started giving her a little breathing room and some time to prove himself that he is trustworthy again and that she can trust him? What if he showed her that she wasn't being pressured? She wasn't being coerced, that he was right there with her. He was her equal partner. My guess is the relationship would start growing because the basic need would get met. And in the end, they would find intimacy, sexual attraction, all the things that they desire and want between them would start growing again. So in that scenario, both of them, in the end, they do get what they need. And they do get what they want. They experience it because they are moving up the triangle together. So before we go any further, I want us to pause and we're going to talk to God about what it is that our marriages might need right now. Ed's going to come and lead us. I think that question that Ed had us sit with for a little bit there is one of the most important questions that you can ask yourself if you're a married couple or if you're not married yet. The question is, what's it like to be married to me? It's an important question to sit with. And what would it be like for someone to be married to me? It's a crucial question. Is it an experience where they feel as if I'm owed something and I'm trying to get it out of them? We have a word for people who think they deserve a perk or a frill, even if it costs their spouse something unreasonable. The word is entitlement. And I'm telling you, nothing kills a marriage faster than entitlement. If you expect or you think you deserve level 2 or level 3, and you are not willing to build the level 1 foundation, entitlement is deep entrenched in your marriage. We do not get married in order to work less. You enter a marriage as a covenant partner to your spouse. And this is really important for those of you who are maybe engaged or you're dating or you're just considering maybe marriage might be in your future. If what you feel you deserve in a marriage currently outweighs the needs that your spouse has, you have already become entitled. And if I can say this, you have no business getting married. And I know that sounds harsh, but you are setting the stage for a miserable marriage. You're making it miserable for the person that you will inflict yourself on, who has the misfortune of marrying you. And again, I know that's hard to hear, and I know that sounds really tough around the edges. I get that. It does not make it any less true. I've seen it for too long now. I have felt entitlement creep into my own soul, and it terrifies me. Thank God it does now. I don't think it did at one point in my life. But no one is entitled to have someone else work harder in their marriage than they are willing to work. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. You know what that means? That means that you don't expect people to do more for you than you are willing to do for them. Galatians 6:5, the Apostle Paul, he says, each one of us should carry our own load. That implies that I never expect you to carry my load for me. Paul also said in 2 Thessalonians 3:10, sounds really harsh. He says, if someone's not willing to work, they don't get to eat. It's just a pointed way of making the same idea. Nobody is entitled to someone else's labor. Now, let me be clear. That does not mean we don't help each other when it's needed. When someone is in need, we step up. We always do. You know that's who we are as Christians. And I know different seasons of life will require different levels of service and different levels of care. It's all baked in there. But that is different from an expectation. That is different from living an entitled life. In the book we've been referring to over and over again today in this talk, The Marriage You Want, the authors tell another story, and I love it because I think it illustrates this idea. I want to read it to you. Erin felt a strong calling to homeschool her children, which is a tier 3 desire. She wanted to raise her kids in the fear of the Lord, where their schooling could focus on Scripture and incorporate God's principles in everything. But when Erin and her husband Clark married, they faced tight finances. Clark installed air conditioners and furnaces, and though it brought in a decent income, it was very difficult to save for a down payment on a house. They were renting a small home, and every month they were going a little bit more in debt. When the kids arrived, the situation started to snowball. They were already struggling to get by on one income, but Erin was continually buying curriculum and new educational toys because the kids need them. The math curriculum alone was $500 per child, but Erin insisted this was necessary because she wanted to provide the best education for her children. She signed them up for expensive homeschooling co-ops, overnight Christian camps. Meanwhile, Clark was growing more and more stressed. He finally sat Erin down and told her, the credit card bills are getting out of control. We need you to work. Clark truly loved Erin and was doing his best. He just felt the finances could not be ignored. But Erin felt like Clark was going directly against God, and he didn't have enough faith, and he was betraying his promises to her as her husband. Now, there was nothing wrong with Erin's dreams. But was she entitled to those dreams? No. Could she have those? Maybe, but only if she was willing to start at the bottom and work side by side alongside of her husband to get to that level together. And I've watched so many people walk into a marriage and they think, I'm going to get married and all my dreams are going to come true. But see, a healthy, God-honoring Christian marriage, by its very definition, was not meant to make your dreams come true. It was not meant to make your passions thrive. It was about you creating a life that allows both of you to thrive as you walk together in step with Jesus, while together you make his dream come true. As we recreate this world so that it is on earth as it is in heaven. See, the way we break out of that entitlement mindset in a marriage is we start developing just simply a team approach. That's what it comes down to. And you know this. Teams understand we are only as strong as our weakest member. And so good teams don't run out ahead and leave a member behind, struggling. Teams care for, teams support one another. And when they do that, the team rises together and everybody wins. I say this to couples all the time. I say, if either one of you wins, the couple loses. But if the couple wins, both of you win. Sheila Gregor, in her book, challenges us in this, and I love the way she puts it. She says, can you throw away the idea that marriage is meant to provide you with an easy, pain-free life in which you get to pursue all your individual dreams and passions while someone else takes care of you, and instead embrace the adventure of having a true partner to walk through life with? That's the foundation of how you create a relationship where you both thrive and you become more Christ-like every day. But let me say this. If you decide to go on this trek, if you decide to do this, if you take on this attitude of teamwork and you build oneness in your marriage, I should warn you, it's going to affect every area of your relationship. It will affect how you spend time together. It will affect how you handle housework, how division of labor happens in your house. It will affect how you resolve conflict. And yes, it's going to affect your sex life. But if you do it, I'm telling you, you will create a safe space for you and your spouse to open up, become vulnerable like you have never dreamed of. And in the end, you'll experience love and connection and joy and closeness of the kind of a covenant relationship, the way God intended marriage to be. But I also know some of you are starting to feel really heavy right now because it feels like so much work. And if you're honest, you're just like, I don't even know where to start. And I know for many of you, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of hard work. And you're going to have to be real patient. And you're going to fail. And you're going to get back up again. And you're going to fail. And you're going to try again. And I know it's hard, but I was talking to Nathan in our office the other day in a meeting. And I just said, I want to help. How can we help couples that are in this space and they're just not sure where to go or what to do next? And so we're still working on the details, but this fall I'm planning to start a regular monthly gathering of couples in our church, and I'll be leading this effort, and we are going to work on all of this stuff together if you want to join. This is going to be a place where we'll learn new ways of how to relate to one another. We're going to share where we're getting it right, and we're going to confess where we're struggling, and we're going to practice, and we're going to fail, and we're going to figure this thing out of how to walk in a covenant relationship together. So I don't have any more details than that. But if you're interested, if you just say, I want to know more about what that's going to look like, there's a place on your card and you can just let me know, and I'll reach out to you. And as soon as we get the details put together and when the start date is and all the good stuff, I'll let you know, and you can be a part of that gathering. I don't know, maybe you're here today and you didn't need any of this. Maybe you're just new to the community, new to church, maybe coming back to faith. I don't know where you're at today, and you're not sure what to do next. Once again, just come back. Just keep coming back. Come back for 3 or 4 weeks and see what God might do in your life. Maybe you've already done that and you're figuring out what your next step is. Sign up for Next Steps today. We'll love to help you. Whatever that looks like for you, you can take those steps on the card, turn it in the buckets when you leave, and we will reach out to you. Right now, though, we're going to take a moment and we're going to remember the love of Jesus, because that's what motivates everything we're talking about. The way we love one another as brothers and sisters in Christ. Of course, that love that exists in our marriages. It is, at its source, the love that was shown to us on the cross by Jesus. That's where all of this comes from, guys. And that's why each week we honor Jesus' sacrifice on that cross. We receive what we call the Lord's Supper or communion. And so today, when you came in the room, hopefully someone handed you a packet and it has bread. We use this to remember the body of Jesus given for us. And then the cup of juice. We drink that and we honor his blood that was poured out for us. And so in just a moment, we're going to have some silence. And in that time, you can eat and drink and give thanks to God for Jesus. And again, if you're just new here and you're not even sure you believe all the stuff I just said, don't feel any obligation. Just maybe use the following moments of quiet and talk to God a little bit and share what's on your heart with him, because, boy, he would sure love to talk with you. But for followers of Jesus, this is our time. We thank God for Jesus' life that was given for us, and we center ourselves on that love. And I want to encourage you today, ask him to lead you to love your spouse or the people in your life the way that he has always loved you. After the time we've had to partake, our band's going to lead us, and we're going to sing a song today about building our lives on that love, the love of Christ. So right now, let's receive the Lord's Supper together.